Hello everyone, and welcome back to Boss Economic World, the show that peels back the layers of the economic onion without making you cry, unless you're shorting the wrong stock. I'm your host, the Boss. Well folks, it's Friday, October 18th, 2025. And just when you thought the week was about to coast to a quiet close, the White House decided to roll out the economic equivalent of a monster truck rally right onto the finely manicured lawn of global trade. President Trump, in his signature style, has just dropped a tariff bomb on the one thing that moves everything else in the American economy, the big rig truck. That's right. The administration has formally announced a brand new 25% tariff on imported medium and heavy-duty trucks and Geopolitics parts, plus a 10% tariff on buses. The official line? It's about national security and bringing back American manufacturing. The unofficial line? Well, that's what we're here to unpack. Because in economics, the press release is just the movie trailer. We're here to watch the whole film, including the post-credit scene where you find out who really paid for everyone's ticket. So, grab your coffee, pull up a chair, and let's break down this high-stakes game of chicken being played with 18-wheelers. Alright, let's get the boring but necessary details out of the way first. This is the stuff the administration wants you to hear. Starting November 1st, just in time to make your Christmas shipping costs a little more festive, any company importing a big truck or a city bus is going to have to write a check to Uncle Sam for a quarter of its value. Think of it as a 25% America First surcharge. Now, this isn't a simple, clean cut. This policy is more like a Frankenstein's monster of trade rules, stitched together from different parts. Part 1, the new sledgehammer. A 25% tariff on medium and heavy-duty trucks and parts. A 10% tariff on buses. This is the big headline. This is the new weapon. Part 2, the carrot for Detroit. But wait, there's a twist. The directive also extends a special discount program for carmakers like Ford and General Motors. This is a tariff offset, basically a government-funded coupon, that was supposed to phase out. Instead, Trump just hit the renew button and extended it all the way to 2030. This is a huge win for the big American automakers, and we'll get into why in a minute. Part 3, the Made in North America escape hatch. There's an exemption for trucks that qualify under the US-Canada-Mexico agreement. If your truck is mostly made in North America, you get a haul pass. This is critical. It's designed to protect and even encourage production within the USMCA bloc. But notice, buses don't get this exemption. Sorry, city commuters. Part 4, a promise for the future. The administration is also dangling another carrot, a new offset program for companies that make engines in the US for both cars and trucks. It's not active yet, but it's a promise, a little treat to keep manufacturers from panicking. So there you have it. A new tax on some, a tax break for others, an escape hatch for a select few, and a promise of more breaks to come. The administration is presenting this as a carefully calibrated move to bolster American industry. As President Trump's trade advisors would say, it's about reorienting global supply chains and penalizing those who don't produce on American soil. It sounds tough. It sounds patriotic. But as we know here at Boss Economic World, the soundbite is never the whole story. Now, let's look at what's really going on. To understand this move, you have to understand the philosophy of the Trump administration's trade policy. It's not a chess game, it's a game of whack-a-mole. You see a problem, you whack it with a tariff. But then another problem pops up, so you have to whack that one too. This truck tariff isn't a new strategy. It's a reaction to the consequences of previous tariffs. Let's rewind. A few years ago, we got the big 25% tariffs on steel and 10% on aluminum. The goal was to boost US steel mills. But what happened? It made steel more expensive for everyone in the US who uses steel, like, say, a truck manufacturer. So, a company like PACCAR, which builds Kenworth and Peterbilt trucks in America, suddenly had to pay more for its raw materials. Meanwhile, a company building a truck in Germany could still buy cheaper Chinese or European steel, build the truck, and then import the finished product to the US. In some cases, this created a bizarre incentive against US manufacturing. The policy was backfiring. So, what do? You play whack-a-mole. You whack the finished product, too. This new 25% truck tariff is the administration's attempt to close that loophole. It's them saying, aha. You thought you could get around our steel tariff by just importing the whole truck? Not so fast. But here's the first piece of the real truth. The justification for all of this is Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. This is the president's magic wand for tariffs. It allows him to impose them without congressional approval if imports are deemed a threat to national security. Let's be adults here. Are we genuinely concerned about a rogue invasion of Daimler cement mixers from Germany or Isuzu garbage trucks from Japan? Is our national defense weakened by the presence of foreign-made long-haul freight carriers? Of course not. It's a legal pretext. It's the only tool in the toolbox that allows for this kind of broad, unilateral action. The national security argument is the flimsy excuse you give your parents for staying out late. The real reason is you just wanted to go to the party. The party, in this case, is protecting specific domestic industries and scoring political points. To understand this move, you have to understand the philosophy of the Trump administration's trade policy. It's not a chess game, it's a game of whack-a-mole. You see a problem, you whack it with a tariff. But then another problem pops up, so you have to whack that one too. This truck tariff isn't a new strategy. It's a reaction to the consequences of previous tariffs. Let's rewind. A few years ago, we got the big 25% tariffs on steel and 10% on aluminum. The goal was to boost US steel mills. But what happened? It made steel more expensive for everyone in the US who uses steel, like, say, a truck manufacturer. So, a company like PACCAR, which builds Kenworth and Peterbilt trucks in America, suddenly had to pay more for its raw materials. Meanwhile, a company building a truck in Germany could still buy cheaper Chinese or European steel, build the truck, and then import the finished product to the US. In some cases, this created a bizarre incentive against US manufacturing. The policy was backfiring. So, what do? You play whack-a-mole. You whack the finished product, too. This new 25% truck tariff is the administration's attempt to close that loophole. It's them saying, aha. You thought you could get around our steel tariff by just importing the whole truck? Not so fast. But here's the first piece of the real truth. The justification for all of this is Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. This is the president's magic wand for tariffs. It allows him to impose them without congressional approval if imports are deemed a threat to national security. Let's be adults here. Are we genuinely concerned about a rogue invasion of Daimler cement mixers from Germany or Isuzu garbage trucks from Japan? Is our national defense weakened by the presence of foreign-made long-haul freight carriers? Of course not. It's a legal pretext. It's the only tool in the toolbox that allows for this kind of broad, unilateral action. The national security argument is the flimsy excuse you give your parents for staying out late. The real reason is you just wanted to go to the party. The party, in this case, is protecting specific domestic industries and scoring political points. This is the hidden story, the real prize in the crackerjack box. The extension of the auto tariff offset program until 2030 is an astronomical gift to Ford and General Motors. Let me break this offset down. Remember those steel and parts tariffs? They hit Ford and GM hard. So, to blunt the cost, the administration gave them a coupon. They can claim an offset worth 3.75% of the value of their US-made vehicles. A $60,000 Ford F-150 built in Dearborn, Michigan, generates a $2,250 credit for Ford that they can use to cancel out the tariffs they pay on imported parts. This was supposed to be a temporary measure to give them time to reshore their supply chains. But today, temporary just got a 5-year extension. We're talking about a program that saves these two companies, collectively, billions of dollars a year. Ford CEO Jim Farley came out with a statement today, saying, a level playing field with a stable and affordable supply chain will mean more growth in America. Let's translate that from corporate speak to English. Thank you, Mr. President, for the multi-billion-dollar subsidy that tilts the playing field in our favor against foreign competitors. Think about it. A company like Toyota or Honda, which might have a different supply chain structure, doesn't benefit in the same way. Even more, cars made in Japan now face a lower 15% tariff under a separate deal, but the 3.75% offset for US production helps Ford and GM claw back a competitive edge. This isn't free market capitalism, this is a carefully negotiated corporate subsidy, plain and simple. And it was won through intense lobbying. Now for the complicated part. Stellantis, the parent company of Ram, is in a weird spot. Their super popular Ram 2500 and 3500 heavy-duty pickups are assembled in Saltillo, Mexico. Because of the USMCA exemption, those trucks can likely waltz across the border tariff-free. This is a huge sigh of relief for them. The exemption dulls the immediate impact on a significant chunk of the market. Last year, the US imported roughly 245,000 medium and heavy-duty trucks. Let's put some numbers on the screen. My sources indicate about 60 to 65% of those, roughly 150,000 trucks, came from Mexico. Those are mostly exempt. But what about the other 95,000 trucks? Those come from places like Japan, Germany, and Sweden. They are about to get slammed. And what about the parts? A Volvo truck might be assembled in Virginia, but if its engine comes from Sweden and its transmission from Germany, the cost of that American truck is about to skyrocket. This creates a chaotic, two-tiered market. A North American-centric supply chain is now being massively subsidized, while a global one is being punished. This isn't leveling the playing field, it's building a wall around North America and forcing everyone to play a new, more expensive game inside it. You don't buy heavy-duty trucks. Why should you care? Because you buy everything that's delivered on a heavy-duty truck. That's your groceries. Your Amazon packages. The lumber for the new house down the street. The equipment for the new hospital wing. Every single physical good you touch has, at some point, been on a truck. A brand new Class 8 semi-truck, the kind that hauls 53-foot trailers, costs about $180,000 to $200,000. Now, add a 25% tariff to a model imported from, say, Japan. That's an extra $45,000. Who pays for that? The trucking company, like J.B. Hunt or Schneider. And what do? Do they just eat a $45,000 loss? No. They pass the cost on. Their shipping rates go up. So the cost for Target to stock its shelves goes up. The cost for your local supermarket to get produce goes up. The cost for Amazon to fulfill your Prime order goes up. And who pays for that? You do. It won't be a line item on your receipt that says Trump truck tariff. It will be hidden in the price of everything. Your gallon of milk costs 5 cents more. Your new sofa costs $50 more. Your Christmas gifts cost 3% more. It is a stealth tax on the entire American consumer economy. The shipping and construction industries have been warning about this for months, and now their warnings are a reality. This policy, designed to help a few thousand manufacturing workers, will raise costs for 330 million consumers. For you professionals watching, let's look at the immediate fallout. As the news broke this morning, the market reaction was predictable. PACCAR shares are up a modest 2%. They are a US-based manufacturer and stand to benefit from their foreign competitors being kneecapped. Ford and GM, trading mostly flat. The extension of the offset is great news, but it's baked into a cake of supply chain chaos and rising consumer costs, which could hurt future sales. The market is saying, we'll take the subsidy, but we're nervous about the whole thing. Daimler Truck and Volvo, their stocks took a hit in European trading, down 4% and 3% respectively. They are on the wrong side of this tariff wall. Logistics companies, down slightly. Investors are pricing in higher future capital expenditures for new trucks. An analyst at Morgan Stanley I spoke to this morning called it a sugar high for Detroit and a long-term migraine for the logistics sector. That's about right. But let's zoom out. What is the ultimate endgame here? This isn't just about trucks. It's a continuation of a fundamental shift in global economic policy. We are moving away from the post-Cold War era of hyperglobalization and free trade at all costs, and towards an era of managed trade, economic nationalism, and friendshoring. The administration is betting that the short-term pain of higher prices and scrambled supply chains is worth the long-term gain of a larger, more resilient domestic manufacturing base. It's a massive, high-risk wager. The problem is, the world doesn't stand still. What's to stop the European Union from retaliating with tariffs on American-made Harleys or Boeing jets? What's to stop Japan from finding new ways to challenge this at the World Trade Organization? The phrase trade wars are good and easy to win is going to be tested again. And don't forget the cliffhanger. The article mentions the Supreme Court is set to review the administration's appeal on its use of another emergency law for tariffs. While this truck tariff is under Section 232, the legal and political atmosphere around executive trade power is electric. A decision against the administration in that other case could embolden legal challenges against this tariff, too. So, here's the full picture. The Trump administration has fired another major salvo in its trade war. They've levied a heavy tax on the workhorses of our economy. To sweeten the deal, they've handed a multi-billion-dollar gift to the big Detroit automakers, rewarding them for their U.S. presence while calling it a level playing field. The move protects and privileges the North American supply chain, throwing a wrench into the global operations of European and Asian truck makers. The stated goal is to bring back jobs. The unstated, but guaranteed, result will be higher costs for shipping, for construction, and ultimately, for every American consumer. We are trading the breathtaking efficiency of the global supply chain, which gave us decades of low-priced goods, for a vision of national industrial strength. The question that economists and voters will have to answer is what's the final price tag on that trade? And is it a price we're willing to pay? One thing is for sure, the road ahead just got a lot bumpier and a lot more expensive. That's all the time we have for today. Stay sharp, and don't believe the hype. I'm the boss, and this has been Boss Economic World. We'll see you next time.